Good morning everybody, how are you all? And hello to all of you that are in the virtual world out there too. My name is SimonHares. I run a business, as Tanya said, called SerialTrainer7 that focuses on management and sales development, two main key areas, and I do a lot of management and coaching training with large businesses as well as small businesses as well. And today, just want you to be able to see the screen a little bit, so I'm kind of dancing around in this little space. This morning in this crystal ball, I've got a little bit of information for you. If you've brought pads and pens, then you might find it really useful to take some notes down, especially on some of the top line tools that I'll give you over the next 45 minutes or so. But what I will do is get this exported to PDF for you, so that then Tanya can then send that to you if you request it, and then that can be sent on to the other hubs as well. All right? So if you have any questions or anything, feel free to ask them at the end. It may be that I answer some of your questions as we go through the session, but feel free to store them up, and I won't be offended if you don't have any questions, that's fine. You might just want to let this wash over you, so it's all good. So this is about helping the role of the manager in a small business, and we're going to be looking at some very specific areas, and we're going to start off just having a look at what we're going to cover. We're going to address the key areas of management within your world, and those areas of management include the most important one, which is self-management and looking after yourself as the business owners. We're then going to look at people management, and we're then going to look at stress management as well. We have only got a small amount of time, so we are going to be able to give you some top line information, some foundation bits and pieces, which will be very useful for you, but you can build on these as well. And if you want to visit my website, you can find a lot more information on the blogs and training notes that are freely available to you, and I would invite you to have a look at that. So it's just SerialTrainer7.com, nice and easy. We're going to look at the priorities within each area. So we're going to look at one or two specific priority areas within self-management, people management, and stress management. And then we're going to look at identifying ways that you can get some additional help. Okay? Sound okay? Yep, good, good. So, when we look at you as managers, and when I coach managers, we need to be able to understand what your fundamental role is. And without putting too much of an academic spin on anything, a guy called Henri Fail, who was a French industrialist years ago, identified some key functions of a manager. And those functions included the elements of planning, forecasting, organizing, communicating, coordinating, and to control and measure. And as such, these areas are very important when you run your own business, and you need to be able to have these in place, because as such, that's what makes your business tick over and work effectively. There is the element of commanding as well, and taking control, and this involves the element of dealing with people. However, one of the questions that does get asked of me as a trainer is, when you're dealing with these managers, is they often say to me, so who looks after me? I run the business, who's my manager? Because often when you have your own business, you might come into that business with a set of skills from maybe a previous employer or previous experience, but when you run your own business, you realize very quickly that you took for granted the accounts department, you took for granted the marketing department, you took for granted any other department that you came into contact with that maybe now you are responsible for, and perhaps you have to perform that function as well. And we need to be able to give business owners a little bit more support. And I like to think of this as the skills you have collectively put together to create your own virtual manager, the person that sits on your shoulder and helps you manage yourself. And you need to have some sort of handle on this so that you can maintain control and keep things nice and organized. Does that make sense? That's kind of what you need, isn't it? Because sometimes you feel a bit on your own. And I know that when I set up my own business, I realized really, really quickly that doing things like invoicing, which is a really nice problem to have, I get it, of course it is, but doing the invoicing, doing all the social media, doing the accounts, dealing with the accountant, doing all of the promotion, is quite a big job, and you take it on thinking, when am I supposed to do this and do my job as well? And that's where we bring in these elements of management that we have learned that can help guide us through. So the first area that we want to look at is this concept of self-management, because if we can't manage ourselves, we're not going to be able to manage anyone else, because we'll look chaotic. And it's about channeling your inner PA. That's what it is, about channeling your inner PA. Unless, of course, you've got one. And if you haven't got one and you want one, then you might want to talk to that lady in the corner there. Hello, Jane. little plug there for Jane. There we go. It's all good. Handsome, lovely, lovely. So, the area of self-management. We need to focus on managing your time, keeping your focus and discipline, and managing, arguably, most importantly, your own value. That you do have a value, and you need to manage that and value it a little bit more. So, we need to coach ourselves a little bit, and the virtual self-coach says to us to focus on some specific areas. And these areas are these here. We've got, it comes up as coach. As a trainer, we love these types of things. They've got easy to remember things. So what you've got is you've got this concept where as you manage yourself and you manage your business, you've got this conviction-driven approach. You need to be convinced in what you're doing, don't you? You believe in your businesses. You're passionate about your businesses. And as such, when you're passionate, you promote and you protect. They're the two things that come out of passion. When you talk passionately about something, you promote it, don't you? And then when someone kind of has a go at it and challenges it a little bit, you then protect it, and you do that with passion. So as such, this conviction needs to be in place. Secondly is this concept of overlearning, and that's about exposing yourself to as many different ways and as many different models and as many different approaches as you possibly can in order to refine, improve, and keep yourself up to date. Always expose yourself to as many different things as you possibly can. If you learn nothing, it doesn't matter, because at least you've seen it. If you learn only one thing, well then that's fine. If you learn a load, well that's even better. But keep exposing yourself to as many things as you can. The minute you stop, then you stand still and your competitors will take over. There is that phrase that says in business, you should always keep one step ahead of your competitors. I was taught very earlier on that actually that's not enough. You should always be 2 steps ahead. Because if you're 2 steps ahead, at least your competitor, when they do step up, they're only 1 step behind you and you can keep going. You don't really want that. The third area is what's called audible ready. Audible ready sounds odd, but what it basically means is listening to that inner voice inside of you that says, I get a sense that this isn't right, or I get a sense that I need to do this, or I've got an instinct about something. And this inner voice tells you when you should change, when you should adapt, and when you should move on. And it's about identifying that. We need to be able to access that a little bit and learn more about that. Then we've got this approach of consistency. Being consistent in the way that we do things makes a difference. If you employ staff, that makes all the difference. You've got to be consistent in your approach, because otherwise staff will challenge you in some way. Not a case of, do as I say, do as I do, and all of that. And then lastly, you've got to be honest with yourself, because keeping yourself honest and following all of those will help to keep you on track. When we think about managing our time as part of managing ourselves, we often find ourselves spinning a lot of plates. Do you find yourself in that situation where you've got to-do lists which are coming out of your ears? Do any of you use kind of the mind map format to do your... Yeah, they're very useful, aren't they? But the shopping list approach is just fine, because we love a bit of red pen, don't we, to cross things off. We love that. But when it comes to managing our time and priorities, we often find that we've got this relationship going on between 2 key areas. The area of things that are urgent and the things that are important. We need to be aware that urgency is driven by one key thing, and that thing is time. Time makes something urgent. Importance is created by opinion. Someone will tell you, or you will tell yourself, that something is important. So therefore, if we understand that this is driven by time and this is driven by opinion, then it helps us to prioritize. And I've got a method that I use to be able to prioritize my to-do list to stop me from doing the things that I like to do and actually get me to get on with the things that I really should be doing. And this method is employed this way. And what I do is I use a number scale, because we all know that if you apply any form of numeric to anything, it removes the emotion from it. Any form of finance or accounting, it makes something cold and sterile. So as such, we need to be able to apply this. And what I do is I break the concept of urgency down into 3 areas: very urgent, urgent, or not urgent. And if something's very urgent, I give it a 3, urgent a 2, not urgent a 1. And the same with importance: very important, important, not important. 3, 2, 1. And then very simply, I look at the tasks that I've got in front of me, and then I assign them a number. If something is very urgent, then it gets a 3. But if it's just important but very urgent, then it will get a 2. And then I very simply multiply the 2 together, and that will give me my priority. So I will end up with a task list of tasks, and each task will have a number next to it. That number will never go higher than 9, because the minute you go into double figures, you lose control. And it means that your to-do list stays nice and short and manageable. If you find you've got lots of things going on and you've got, say, projects going on, you can use this system to prioritize the projects you're working on and the tasks that go to make up that project inside of it. Does that make sense? So you're kind of attaching numbers to make this happen. If you end up with tasks that have the same number, then you very simply lean on the urgency side, so that you can find which one needs to be done first, and then you apply a 0.5 to it or a 0.2, but you make sure it never goes into a true double figure. And that way it keeps things nice and simple. It's a nice, elegant, neat, but cold and emotionless model to help manage your time. When we think about self-management, and when we think about telling ourselves what we need to do, we need to think of things in terms of their profitability and sustainability. When I coach managers, I get them to answer a number of these questions. And these questions focus around these areas here. If there's something that's going on, I ask people, what's the actual action that you need to carry out? And this is a good question to ask yourself when you're doing something. What actually is the action? What is it you want to do? And then I want to know what the cost of that is. And that cost could be financial, but it could be in time as well, or it could be in resources. Cost isn't just about finance, is it? Then I ask, what's the profitability on that? And profitability doesn't, again, necessarily mean money. It could be, does it give you more time? Does it give you more resource? When will it be realized as a result of that? How will it be sustained? Can it be continued? So there's a bit on the long term. And actually, when can you get started? And when I work with managers who end up getting a little bit stuck on things, I tend to get them to work on this basic matrix. Seems to work quite well for them. It might work for you. And as I said to you, you'll get all of this at the end sent through you, so you'll have a reminder of it if you're not jotting any of it down. It's important as well when you do work for yourself to think about quality management as well. And quality management is really important to work forward. So remember that, and this is just a quick word on it, you need to understand what constitutes quality in your business. Is it the service you offer? Is it the product you produce? Is it the way that you manage? What is it? What is it that constitutes quality? Understanding TQM principles, total quality management principles. And a lot of these are based in Japan as well, the Hondas and the Toyotas of this world. And some of them are quite big chunk, if you will. But it's a good idea to understand them, and also to understand where and when waste is applied. There's a lot of theories on where waste comes from within a business, and it can be around things like overproduction, over-preparing, transport, getting to places, those types of things, not just the stuff you throw away. And as such, if you can understand where waste is generated within your business, you can actually minimize it and create a better efficiency. I've got some really, really good stuff that you might want to have, and if you want it, I can send it to you. One thing you might want to look up on the sources of waste within business. It's easy to remember. It's an acronym which is called Tim Woods. And each letter of Tim Woods is a place where waste comes from. So it's worth having a look at. And if you want to read more about it, then read the work of Joseph Duran. Joseph Duran was a pioneer in terms of lean, quality TQM management systems. Absolutely brilliant. The reason I tell this to you is because he's very, very real world. He's not one of these academics that just sits out there and talks in a very distant way. He's very real, very down to earth, and I think you would like him. So a lot of the people that I've recommended his work to find it quite easy to grasp, which is great. So that's just about quality management. So we've looked at briefly about managing ourselves, and then building from managing ourselves is about stress. Do any of you feel any form of stress at all? Of course you do. Yeah, of course you do. I'm glad you all said that, because sometimes when I ask that, people just sit there and they go, no, what's stress? And under the table they're like, ah! So we need to think about this virtual stress management. We need to understand stress Stress is a lot more than being given the advice which says, go to a gym, do some exercise, or go to bed early, or eat healthier. Because we find out that when people are suffering from stress, the one thing they do is they eat, and they comfort eat. The second thing is they can't sleep, so what's the point in telling them to go to bed? And also, they're never going to go to a gym anyway if they've never been to a gym, because that place just fills them with fear. So those particular bits of offering are not actually that good for all people. We need to be able to make sure it's something a bit more robust. So when it comes to stress management, we need to identify what the hell it is you're feeling and why you're feeling it. How can I get through it? Can it actually be good? And could I have some help? Do we think that stress is a good thing? Do you think stress is good? Yeah, it can be, can't it? Little bit. It can be quite good. If we think of it in certain terms, if you thought about it this way, if you took someone's arm and I took one of your arms and I wrapped it up in cotton wool and kept it all nice and warm, and I said that your arm for the rest of its life will never ever experience any form of stress, discomfort ever again, what would actually happen to that arm in time? It would create atrophy, wouldn't it? It would wither and get very weak. But actually, if I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that arm, and every day, for 3 times a day, for 20 reps, I want you to lift a 20-kilo dumbbell. In time, the arm will get stronger, won't it? But the process by which it gets stronger is by putting it under stress. So stress can be positive because it can make us grow and get stronger, but the way we have to get through it is to go through a bit of pain.